Sword World is Japan's answer to D&D, being born from a 1998 D&D campaign and Japan's crippling addiction to D6s. While we've never seen an official release, the fan translation has been released. All of the core books from Sword World 2.5 have been released for your viewing pleasure, and it's good. Very good. Sword World is just a 2d6 RPG at its core, and by just a 2d6 RPG, I'm not lying. Every roll, most charts, and every action will be some variation of the two clicky clacks, and this isn't a problem. It keeps things focused and simple for the breadth of other features. The 3 core books total up to be a bit around 1,300 pages, but remember that these are smaller than average pages, and most of them are examples. Characters are composed of their race, background, and classes. A character's race is going to give them their attributes and racial ability. In total, there are 12 races between each of the books, with most fairly typical outside of some odd cases. Looking at you, grass runners. Each one of them is going to determine your initial attribute spread using a chart. A majority of your A through F stats will be just a simple die roll. A rune folk, for example, will be only rolling 1d6 for their spirit, but 2d6 for their strength. The racial abilities often grant minor bonuses or abilities for the character to reflect their nature as well. Backgrounds, on the other hand, determine their base ability scores. These can be randomized or selected as well, but since we're going to be using a rune folk warrior, for example, we'll have a base setup of 9 skill, 12 body, and 5 mind. They also give you your very first class and experience to deal with. After all your attributes have been determined by your race and background, you add them up, divide by 6 to determine your initial modifiers. Often these are ranging from 1 to 3 to start, but they are very pivotal. This may seem a little overwhelming, but the book explains everything succinctly while providing a plethora of examples. The character sheet often has everything perfectly labeled for you to more easily understand where and how these abilities connect with one another. Now we get to classes. Classes are divided between major and minor classes, and may seem that major classes are the important ones while minor ones are for losers, but a better way of thinking about it is that a major class is a breadth of skills while a minor one is a precise skill. Similar to Goblin Slayer, your classes aren't going to strictly give you powers, but instead grant you bonuses to certain rolls. For example, the warrior is going to give you a better chance to hit and defend themselves, while a wizard is going to get more powerful spells. Minor classes allow you to augment these though, such as including the fencer, which is all about precise strikes and building critical hit damage, while the sage is all about being smart. Major classes cost more, while minor classes cost less, but are more precise, leading to quite a few potential developments for a character over time. In total, there are 7 major and 9 minor classes across all of the books, leading to quite a wide variety of different combinations for a simple character. But let's take our rune folk, for example. We begin with 1 level in warrior, so we can spend our remaining 2,000 experience on 2 levels of bard and 500 on fencer. Each class clearly explains what they're going to be doing by giving you the appropriate bonuses on the sheet. This does mean, however, that not having a class in a particular skill doesn't prevent you from succeeding, it just hinders your efforts greatly. The final part of everything is combat feats. Now, these may come off a little bit spooky, but most of these are associated with bonuses or benefits in the long run. The game even points out recommended combat feats if you're lost. For example, we're just going to take aim attack 1 for now, allowing us to hit our enemies easier with our saber. After that, we pick up some gear and we're good. The main crux of the game is just that 2d6 plus ability modifier plus class to most checks, which every check is also laid out for you. For example, let's say we need to perform some performance, then we'll be rolling our bard level plus our spirit modifier plus 2d6 versus the target number set before us, with the basic being around 9 to 11. That's it. If you can think it, you can probably find it somewhere in the how to play section, but you don't want to hear about performances, you want to hear about bloodshed, and combat plays out quite simply. First, choosing simplified or standard combat is the name of the game. Simplified would be something more akin to a JRPG with front lines and back lines, while standard combat is far more distance-based and relying on you positioning yourself properly. There's actually nothing in place for a grid, actually. First thing you do is make an initiative check to see if your group or their group acts first, and then you start beating the shit out of one another. Each character has one thing to do on their turn, allowing them to perform a major and minor action. A vast majority of attacks are going to be your accuracy check versus their evasion check, with both sides aiming to beat the other. If you strike true, well, that's where things start getting a little bit weird. Behold the power table. Each weapon will have a power associated with it. For example, our saber has a power of 10, so we'll roll on the power table with a 2d6 as well. If we roll an 8, congratulations, we did 4 damage, adding our warrior skill and our strength modifiers together, totaling a pretty nasty hit. If you score double 1s on there, well, get fucked, loser. If you manage to beat the crit value, 10 on a saber, then you'll roll again on the power table. This may seem a little bit overwhelming, but it's quite intuitive. It's just adding smaller numbers up together together rather than dealing with 3d6 plus 2d4 plus 4, it's 4 plus 3 plus 1. Spells work similarly with their own power ratings, but limited spell lists can also be used freely as long as you have the mana to cast them and you qualify for them. No more spell slots here, it's just cast and go. However, what happens when you come home a bit battered, a bit bruised, but successful? Your experience points can be used to buy classes that can directly impact your adventure level, tied directly to your highest class, which does discourage spreading out your classes too thin. Instead, you're going to be relying primarily on about 3 to 4 classes to carry you all the way through. Every 2 adventure levels, you're going to get a new feat, which can be used to buy one of the many feats that you qualify for, but most are either raw benefits or very clearly explained. You'll also roll 1d6 at the end of every adventure and increase a random stat by 1, which is a constant trickle of power even if you're not really doing too hot. That's the basic of everything, and that's barely halfway through. A majority of the book is trying to help you understand the world, its features, or going into detail about its toys. The further core books actually expand out the game with higher tier weapons, higher tier gear, and higher tier options. I can't go over everything though, like how resurrection is part of the setting, scarring the person's soul more and more, the more unique classes being able to craft golems and call allies into the field, to outright having a pawn system from Dragon's Dogma. This game is a large one, but every part of it is attempting to make sure that you understand what you're doing. It's a simple game, masquerading as something far more complex, not necessarily to intimidate, but to inform. I want you to know exactly what you're doing, and exactly how to do it, even if it might seem a little bit overbearing at times. There are 2 issues though, 2 major ones. The first one is that this is a Japanese game, and I do mean that. It's going to look anime and some grogs are going to immediately cringe over the cover, but can you use Sword World for other games and tones? Yeah. I used the analogy that Goblin Slayer was a big stupid fluffy dog that just wanted to smother you in information. Sword World is a larger dog that wants to smother you more. It keeps itself serious, but if you can push the weeb factor away, it's just as harsh as any of these other fantasy games. The second issue is, to me at least, it's a little bit too perfect. It's a Rubik's Cube at the end of the day. All the parts click together so nicely that if you want to try and add anything or tweak anything, you risk collapsing the entire thing. That perfection does not allow any wiggle room either, meaning that it has a fairly structured feel to it. It's a big friendly dog that wants to smother you, keep you all so happy, but also corral you into playing it its way rather than your way. Do I recommend it? Of fucking course I do. It's probably one of the cleanest, most precise TRPGs I've read in a while. Clearly the work of passionate people, and the translation is damn near perfect. Do not be intimidated by the elf dog. Understand that it wants to help you more than it should. My name is Notepad Anon, and this was Sword World 2.5. If you like what I do here, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And many thanks to the plutocrats as always who fund my misadventures. And a many thanks to you for helping me to reach 1,000 subscribers. I hope to grow further and improve along the way. Godspeed, good luck, and trust me, this next game will have nothing wrong with it.